reading that talks about the past, the present, and the future. In my readings, I met a philosopher called Søren Kierkegaard. He made a profound statement and said life is best understood backwards, but it's lived forwards. Kierkegaard reminds us that every now and then we need to cast a retrospective glance at our past to see the things that we did that were useful and bring them into our present. And then in that we'll prepare for a better future. Further, none of us, no people, no organization, no country can ever afford to ignore their history. History preserves continuity. It reminds us of those who came before us, those who struggled and suffered and sacrificed for us to be here. Equally, we cannot let our history chain us to the past. There's so much going on that we cannot remain there and we cannot remain here. We need to change as the world changes. But more importantly, in coming here, I thought about the most miracle or miraculous event that mankind has seen: childbirth. I didn't study biology, but I know that there's 300 million sperms be going around chasing an egg. And for 9 months, in the moment of ecstasy, and for 9 months, we'll live in an inconceivable love and closeness in our mother's womb. 4 or 5 weeks into pregnancy, an embryo is formed which can send impulses to the human brain and nervous system. I'm not going to give you a biology class here, but just moving forward, when the time is up at the moment, doctors and nurses and people all become coaches, coaching our mothers, urging them on. In that moment, every part of the woman's body is aching. Sweat coming out of her forehead, screaming in pain, willing to go through that pain just for the sake of the baby. It continues when a woman, you hear the words, congratulations. It's a boy, it's a girl. That woman who was crying in pain began to smile. In biblical terms, there may be darkness at night, but in the morning, joy will come. But another thing, the baby who was one time in an inconceivable that comes to a place where it's unknown to her, so it starts crying. At that moment, you pause to say, what a divine technology. I don't care how much science you know. I don't care how much science you know in biology. No one can explain that to me but our Creator. So the moment a child arrives, he comes here with unquestionable trust, knowing that the people who brought them here, they are defenseless and innocent. They know that we are going to take care of them. How dare we in Africa let a child die 5 years into his living Not because they don't want to live, but because they're too poor to live. How dare fathers leave home and don't take care of their babies? If you understand this gift, you will protect it. When I saw my first child born, I went to my mother and said to her, Mama, how did you do this 8 times? 8 times. I respected women before that, but it increased my respect. And so that's why it's important. Even though when I got the invite, I looked in the dictionary if I could find the meaning of Sheroes, and I couldn't find it. So I knew that it's a new word, appropriate so that we have to deal with. But most importantly, in our continent, God has already blessed us. That we have almost everything. The richest continent on the face of the earth, home to 51% of world's untapped minerals. There's no continent, none, that has what we have. And yet, we're poor. We're poor because those who may have led us failed us. 61 years into our independence, our children are dying of malaria. I remember in 1957, when we got our first independence in Ghana, our first president, and excitement and electricity, said, our continent, Africa, is free forever. He didn't stop there. He told the white folks to get out of town. Enough is enough. We got this. We Africans have this now. And in his words, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. 61 years later, this is where we are. That's where we are. We don't want to change. We're here because most of our leaders have been ones who defend the status quo. We're here because we have picked up some disease, this greed-induced mental illness of accumulating material wealth, more often with no regard to that accumulation's consequence on the rest of society. We have no excuses anymore. We can't blame it on the colonial masters. We can't say that it's the imperialist fault. We can't say that the World Bank cheated us. When we begin to have our sovereignty, it means we are in control of everything. In areas where we need to make investment in education, more so in the girl-child education. We need to understand that the world has changed. Science and technology is rapidly changing our lives for better productivity, for better health, and for better capital enormity. We look at countries where we were counterparts with. South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia. Those countries who have made impressive strides in their social economic development have done so, not because of what the countries have. It is what the country knows, the application of knowledge. This continuous unfolding of knowledge and ideas is the principal cause of some countries' ability to progressively do more with less. We have more than Singapore has. We have more than South Korea has. We have more than Malaysia could ever dream of. And yet, at independence, we were 5 million people with per capita income of $600. They have the same thing. Sometimes we're better than them. And they have moved from $600 to $45,000 today, and we're still hovering around $1,800. We're doing something wrong. The point I'm trying to bring home is it's us men who have led this continent for 60 years. Maybe it is time. Maybe it is time for us to look at our mothers and sisters and trust them enough to let them run the ship. Because everywhere you look, when women are educated, most likely their children are going to be educated. And if you're not like Moses, when they're educated, they then decide when and with whom and how many children they're going to have. One of the things that's killing us is overpopulation. If you go to Northern Europe, the TFR, the total fertility rate is 2.1. Here in Africa, it's 7.2. And sometimes our mothers don't even have the same. I am a proud of grandson of one of the greatest kings in Ghana, and Oforiata. Grandfather had 96 children. Oh, yes. I mean, there were no DNAs there, and I'm telling you, it was their children, his children. And so, as I was growing up, I asked my grandmother, who incidentally was one of the ones who had 9 with him, and I asked her, how did the rest do it? He said, the king just go to his bedroom and said, bring me my wife. He didn't say, bring me one of my wives, but bring me my wife. And the household guy would go and bring a wife. And my grandmother said, if you're fine, if you're in good sittings with the guy, you're the one that gets called more. And that's why she was the one that had 9. So Bible didn't start now. Back then, they were Bible to get more kids. The point I'm making is she didn't have a choice. But you have to come understand that choice is what God gives us. And if you let our women manage their homes, if we allow women to lead, as Gifted said, we came from matrilineal families, and most matrilineal families believe in cooperation. Most patriarchal families believe in domination. And so in cooperation, you can bring people together and make sure that it works. I believe that it's time for us to change. Most ideas of change will attract opposition and will attract some followers. We should not be afraid of that. We in positions of power have to understand that each generation is going to pick after us. Would this be a nice continent to live with? Every time they mention of Africa, we're talking about senseless wars, tribal conflict, coup d'etats. It's time for us to stop and pick up models from South Korea and Malaysia and Singapore. We need to invest in infrastructure. We need to make sure that every child, every school-age child will have a desk to write on, a chair to sit on, and a good teacher to learn from. That's where the world is. The pursuit of wealth now is a pursuit of knowledge. Intellectual capital, the attraction and management of intellectual capital is going to determine what country makes it or not. So I believe that we sit here and we are honoring our Sheroes. We're not just going to stop here and allow them to shine. They should be shining themselves. There shouldn't be an affirmative action for a woman to get a job that she has worked hard for and qualified for. It must be a matter based on meritocracy. And unless all of us believe in those public values of equality and justice and freedom and human rights, maybe we're going to be far from it. The point I'm saying is if we're ever going to go anywhere and turn our continent around and make sure there's accountability, and make sure there's transparency, and make sure that our women would like to keep properties in their homes as against us. When we get to power, we'll dip our hands in the public till, expunge monies, and have the monies take a flight. Destinations: Switzerland, New York, Dubai. The thing that bothers me is, how do you steal the money from here and give it to the man who once colonized you? Dambisa Mayo, the Zambian economist writer, said there are two types of corruption: positive corruption and negative corruption. And I was eager to read. He said the positive corruption is what we have in Asia. When the money is stolen, they bring it back to the economy. The negative corruption is what we have here in Africa. We take the money that can build bridges, that can build schools, that can build hospitals, that can pay teachers well and nurses, and take it away from the economy. How dare we? You ought to be an insensitive, heartless leader to do this. We have plenty. God has already done his. We need to manage it well. I was talking to America and I said to them that there's too much poverty in Africa. And one guy said, Osagifo, we have poverty here too in America. I said, no. They're two different poverties. Your poverty is poverty within opportunity, PWO. The poverty we have in Africa is poverty without option, PWO. And in our poverty, when it rains, you get wet. When your stomach hurts, you're hungry. When you're sick, you die. And in that instance, the people cannot help it. They can fight it. And they cannot change it. And African leaders watch. So I'll be the first one to say that we need our mothers and women to take charge of our continent. When daddy is not bringing the bacon, when there's no money in the house, women always find a way to put food on the table. So on that note, let me just remind the audience here, I mean, there are a few men here, but in my readings, when I wake up every morning, I get confused sometimes in this country about how we are, because other people have lived within the bounds of their constitution. They have respected and defended the rule of law. That's how they made it in Malaysia. But we don't. But we have something that every day, if we read, it'll help us a great deal. song written by a great Ghanaian, Ifemamo. He said, Yangaraya Sassini, the corporate ownership of this land. Then he challenged us as our forebears suffered to get us here. What about you? Long in 1937, Ifemamo saw that in this country there would be some destructive, selfish individuals. He knew that there are people who may not love this country enough to pull this country down. Kutukani. Then he talked about public office arrogance. As a child at 12 years old, when you read those three words, you never understood it. Kutukani, we sang it anyway. But Ifemamo inspires me and says that we have to look out for these nemesis in our society. 1937. But what was remarkable for me as I read them is he said, look, when we make it as a nation, you can pat yourself in the back. But when we fail, don't blame the colonial masters. Don't blame the imperialists. The burden of guilt is on your feet and mine. What Ifemamo teaches us, we need to assume complete responsibility for what we have done to this great real estate, Africa. We are the only ones that can fix it. And we have to. Because our children will never forgive us if we continue in this path. I say this believing that there's a promise and that we can transform this country. I am optimistic. It means knowledge. What I don't think we have now is a political will, the courage, and the wisdom. But you know what? We can learn that. Good afternoon.